Cleveland, where Deshaun Watson's rehab continues. His health and ability, the most important question the Browns need to answer, of course, but Amari Cooper's contract, the running back position without Nick Chubb for a while. There are a couple other topics to keep an eye on. Here's more on Watson's recovery, specifically from GM Andrew Berry.
He's really actually ahead of schedule. He's really chomping at the bit to take the governor off, so to speak. But really, he's had a really nice spring. He's thrown the ball well. We're excited as he gets into training camp and we get the pads on. But he's making excellent progress. And honestly, if you didn't know he got hurt last year, you really wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So we're very excited once camp starts.
So, Phil, that sounds promising. Yeah. Will we ever see the best version of Deshaun Watson again?
All I'm willing to say, Laura, is it's this year or never. Right? Because at this point, you're 3 years removed from Deshaun Watson being at what might be the peak of his powers, right? Arguably the second quarterback you'd build your franchise around behind Patrick Mahomes when he was traded away from Houston to Cleveland. He had the 11-game suspension during his first season. Comes back in December, cannot find a rhythm, plays in terrible weather games. Last year, battling through injury. The final half that he played last year, before he was out for the rest of the season, though, was the best half we've seen of Deshaun Watson. Yep. Yeah, small sample size leader to the max here. But they overcame a 14-point deficit against the best defense in the NFL, the Ravens. If he can build off of that, the Browns can be excellent. But I can't tell you any more than that with certainty right now.
Yeah, and what's really difficult about this is that the Browns' offense was pretty good under Joe Flacco last year. And not just because of Joe Flacco, but with 2 backup tackles, no Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson didn't have as well, and without Amari Cooper for a stretch against teams like the Jets, they were incredible down the stretch. And that's my concern, is this offense is really a play action heavy. They want to boot, they want to get their quarterback on the edge. And Joe Flacco was much better at that than Deshaun Watson was last season. So I wonder, we talked about maybe the schematic bit when Deshaun Watson got there. It feels like they still haven't really resolved that. And when left to their own devices, it felt like they got better with a guy in Joe Flacco who was on his couch for most of the year last year.
Yeah, that part's crazy.
Literally on his couch.
Yeah. Kimberly, what are you hearing about the 2 key pieces?
We don't need to hear what she has to say. Okay, so I want to talk about this because first off, it is interesting, right? This idea that Flacco did better than Watson. And that's because, first off, the Browns now, especially with their head coach, have a true offensive mind in the room. And when you have that, you want the more mature and experienced player you have at your quarterback position, the more success you can have. It's just that simple. Joe Flacco is a buttoned-up, seasoned veteran and is in the position where he's not going to just kind of go off script and do what he wants to do. He is going to go to the coach and say, this is what I want you to do. This is the offense that I want you to execute. And he's just going to do it. And that's why Joe Flacco can absolutely succeed with the Cleveland Browns in this very situation. But that can only get you so far in a lot of ways, as we saw come time playoffs. Because now when you go up against these really, really good teams, when you need someone to maybe get you over that hump or to really carry you, at this point in Joe Flacco's career, he's potentially not capable of. He's capable of doing it. Now let's enter Watson. I agree with I forget who said it earlier, but that it's now or never for Watson. Because Watson was poised to take over. Watson was essentially Patrick Mahomes before Patrick Mahomes was really Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean, like, it was all eyes on Watson and unbelievable. It was just, he was just seen as just taking over the NFL and just magical stuff. And oh my God, who is this guy? This guy is going to absolutely take over. And then obviously things got derailed, we don't have to unpack it, but things got derailed from off the field stuff and then injuries. And now he's obviously with Cleveland, and it just, everything changed. Everything changed for him. And now it's like, well, can he recapture what he was? And a lot of people think like, oh, he just doesn't have it anymore, which I disagree. That doesn't really make sense to me. You don't just lose it. Or two, this idea that he doesn't want it anymore, that he doesn't care. And I disagree with that as well. Because I understand Watson made some mistakes that I think, are not great by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't think he wants to go out that way. I do think he wants redemption. I think he did awful things, but I don't think he's fundamentally an awful person. And I really do believe that. I think sometimes people make bad mistakes, but they're still good people. While I think there's other people who are just fundamentally bad people and will continue to make bad mistakes or just do bad things. We have plenty of athletes who continue to do bad things because I think they're just fundamentally bad people. And I do not think that that's necessarily Deshaun Watson. And so I think there are a lot of people rooting against him, and I understand why. And if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, I understand you probably are sensitive to that issue, but at the same time, it's just, what he did was not great. And so I think that will always influence the analysis of who Deshaun Watson is. Always. Because I just don't think in a world where if he didn't make those mistakes and if he didn't have that all that off the field stuff, people would be saying, is Flacco better than Watson? They just wouldn't say that. They just wouldn't. But here we are, right? That's the situation we find ourselves in. So I think if Watson can actually get settled, they have the offense, they have the defense, they have the head coach, that if Watson can also just execute the offense exactly how Stefanski wants it, then the Browns can be true trouble and be a legit contender like they were proving to be with Flacco. To me, it's that straightforward. It's that simple. But I do agree that it is kind of now or never. You either ball out and you don't have to maybe play exactly how you did at the peak of your powers, but you need to prove, because Deshaun Watson should in theory be a top 10 quarterback at the least, at the minimum. Depending on considering what we saw from him years ago, he should be, just saying top 10 honestly feels weird, because before any of the stuff went down, you would have said he is a bona fide top 5 quarterback. That's why the Cleveland Browns paid all that money for him, because they're like, this dude's a top quarterback. And, so it's like you either are or you aren't. And at this point, we can give him some grace because he is recovering from an injury and he has had a lot of time off. But at this point, it's now or never. It really is. So I'm really interested to see how this all unfolds, because, I don't know if I'm just going to automatically bet against Watson, quite honestly, because as long as he's fully healthy, I think he should have enough rapport and enough experience with the Browns and Stefanski, and I think they should be able to be competitive. But it's the AFC is tough, so you just don't know what that really means, because it's obviously littered with great teams, great quarterbacks. I think the level of skill and competition is only increasing in the NFL as a whole. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns can be legit this season? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.